Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, where we blend casual conversations with insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets. Today we're diving into how the predicted 2024 election results might shake up the tech world
Interesting stuff.
and exploring the exciting but maybe slightly bumpy road ahead for electric vehicles. So buckle up, it's going to be a fascinating ride.
Yeah, it really does feel like every sector's kind of on edge, waiting to see how things shake out after the election.
Right, like everyone's holding their breath a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's break down some of these potential impacts. One of the biggest areas everyone's watching is mergers and acquisitions, right? I've heard whispers about a potential M&A boom if things go the way some analysts are predicting.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of talk about that.
But wouldn't that also potentially lead to concerns about monopolies and less competition?
Oh, absolutely. That's the big trade-off, right? The stricter merger guidelines we saw under the Biden administration might be loosened, which could make it easier for companies to merge.
So kind of a free-for-all.
Well, not quite, but definitely a shift towards a more hands-off approach. And yes, that could lead to fewer players in certain markets, which always raises questions about fair competition.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I've also heard some economists talking about this idea of animal spirits returning to the market.
Ah, yes. Animal spirits. Always a fun term to throw around.
What does that actually mean in this context, for those of us who don't speak economist?
Good point. Think of it as a surge in optimism and risk-taking among investors. When they're feeling confident, they're more likely to pour money into deals, even big, risky ones. It's that feeling when a company goes public and everyone rushes to buy stock, hoping to ride the wave.
I see, so kind of like a gold rush mentality.
Exactly. A similar energy could drive a wave of mergers and acquisitions.
So a bit of a double-edged sword, then potentially more innovation and investment, but also the risk of things getting out of hand.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
Balance, that's the key word for sure. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the semiconductor industry. The GPS Act was designed to boost American chip production and reduce reliance on foreign suppliers. But it's been a bit of a mixed bag so far, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely had its ups and downs. Some companies, like Intel, have struggled even with GPS Act funding.
Yeah, which makes you wonder if it's really having the intended effect.
It's facing challenges for sure. But then you have a company like NVIDIA, which didn't even receive GPS Act funding and is absolutely killing it. They strategically focused on AI chips and partnered with key manufacturers like TSMC in Taiwan.
So NVIDIA kind of zigged when everyone else zagged.
Yeah, you could say that their forward-thinking approach has really paid off.
Smart. But what about the potential for tariffs under a new administration? Could that disrupt the whole global supply chain, especially given how important Taiwan is to chip manufacturing?
Oh, absolutely. Tariffs add another layer of complexity to an already intricate global network. Remember, most of the world's advanced chips are made in Taiwan, so any disruptions there have huge ripple effects. If tariffs increase the cost of doing business with Taiwanese manufacturers, it could impact everyone from chip designers to the companies that use those chips in their products.
Right, it's all connected. So it's a delicate balancing act between boosting domestic production and navigating these global interdependencies.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Speaking of delicate balancing acts, let's zoom in on electric vehicles. It feels like that market is changing at warp speed these days. What's driving all this momentum?
It's a combo of factors, really. Government incentives, shifting consumer preferences, and of course, the ever-increasing competition.
Yeah, it seems like every car company is jumping on the EV bandwagon now.
They kind of have to at this point. For many people, that $7,500 federal tax credit in the U.S. is a major incentive. It can make a significant difference in the affordability of an EV, tipping the scales in favor of going electric.
Right, that's a big chunk of change. And then you have California leading the charge with over 20% of their car sales already being electric. They're like a glimpse into the future of driving.
California is definitely ahead of the curve. Their zero emissions mandate, which aims for all new car sales to be electric by 2035, is a huge driver of this trend.
Ambitious. But it raises the question, can other states realistically follow suit? Funding these kinds of initiatives can be a major hurdle.
It's a big question mark for sure, especially if those states don't have the same kind of tech-driven economy and early adopter culture as California.
Right. It makes you wonder if a nationwide shift to electric vehicles might require a different approach.
Maybe. But on the other hand, if the federal government were to implement stricter emission standards nationwide, it could create a similar effect even without direct financial incentives like California's.
Interesting point. That would create a level playing field for automakers across the country and encourage them to invest more heavily in EV development.
Exactly. But there are also political and economic considerations to weigh.
Always.
Yeah.
And it's never as simple as just flipping a switch. And speaking of making things complicated, we've also got cheaper EVs from China potentially entering the market. How do you see that playing out?
It's going to be fascinating to watch. On one hand, it could make EVs more accessible to a wider range of consumers, which is great for promoting adoption. But it also raises concerns about potential job losses in the U.S. auto industry and the complexities of navigating trade relations with China.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but also the geopolitical and economic forces at play.
It's all intertwined.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this conversation.
We've just dipped our toes in.
Definitely lots more to unpack. But before we dive deeper, let's take a quick pause and hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back with more insights on the future of tech.
Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back to Byte-Sized Tech. Before the break, we were talking about cheaper EVs from China.
Right, and how that could shake things up.
Yeah, definitely. But I also wanted to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the potential for a surge in mergers and acquisitions.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
It makes you wonder how that shift might impact the overall tech scene.
Could it be a good thing? Like more innovation?
Potentially, yeah. A more relaxed regulatory environment could encourage innovation and attract investment, particularly in cutting-edge fields like AI and biotech startups and emerging tech companies might really thrive.
So a boom time for those with bold ideas.
Yeah, you could say that. But of course, there are also downsides to consider.
Like what?
Well, less regulation can sometimes mean less oversight, which can be good for innovation, but it also raises questions about ethical considerations, data privacy, even the potential for market bubbles.
Right, so it's a balancing act.
Always is.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking a lot about big picture trends, but I want to bring it back to something you mentioned earlier, NVIDIA's success with AI chips.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like AI is everywhere these days. What's your take on its role in shaping the future of tech?
It's huge. AI is undoubtedly one of the most transformative technologies of our time. It's revolutionizing everything from healthcare to finance to the way we interact with our devices. Think about it. Your smartphone can practically anticipate your needs now.
It's kind of creepy sometimes, right?
Yeah, a little.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty amazing.
For sure. But beyond convenience, it seems like AI has the potential to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges too.
Absolutely. AI is being used to develop new treatments for diseases, create more sustainable energy solutions, even predict natural disasters. It's not just about making our lives easier, it's about using technology to make a real difference in the world.
Okay, so now I'm really excited about AI. That's the kind of tech that gets me fired up, the kind that solves problems and improves lives.
I hear ya. And as AI continues to evolve, it feels like we're just scratching the surface of its potential.
So circling back, how might the predicted 2024 election results impact the development and application of AI?
That's the million-dollar question. A change in administration could lead to shifts in funding priorities for research and development. We might see more emphasis on certain areas of AI, like cybersecurity or defense applications, while others, like social impact initiatives, might receive less attention. It's all part of that complex interplay between politics, policy, and technological advancement.
Right, it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today, from potential M&A shifts and the GTS Act to the evolving EV market and the rise of AI. It's been a whirlwind of insights.
I know, right? And what's fascinating is how interconnected all these areas are. The political landscape influences tech policy, which in turn shapes market trends and consumer behavior. It's a constantly evolving ecosystem, and understanding those connections is key to navigating the exciting world of technology.
It's like a giant puzzle where each piece affects the overall picture.
Perfect analogy.
So before we wrap up, what's one key takeaway you want our listeners to leave with today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're living in a time of extraordinary technological change, and the decisions made today will have a profound impact on the future. It's crucial for all of us to stay informed, engage in thoughtful discussions, and embrace a mindset of continuous learning.
Well said. So to our listeners out there, stay curious, stay engaged, and buckle up for the ride. The future of tech is in our hands. Welcome back to Byte-Sized Tech. Man, we've been talking about all these massive shifts in the tech landscape, and I gotta say, my brain is buzzing.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It feels like we're on the cusp of some major breakthroughs. Like, what are you most excited about right now?
One area I'm really excited about is the development of autonomous vehicles.
Oh yeah, self-driving cars.
Exactly. The technology is advancing at an incredible pace, and I think we're going to see some major advancements in the next few years.
It's crazy to think that something that used to be science fiction is becoming more and more of a reality. What do you think are the biggest hurdles right now?
Well, it's a bit of both the tech itself and the stuff surrounding it.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, the technology is incredibly complex. Ensuring safety and reliability is paramount.
Yeah.
But then you also have to navigate the legal and ethical implications of self-driving cars.
Right, like who's responsible if something goes wrong?
Exactly. And public trust is crucial. Demonstrating that these systems are safe and dependable will be key to widespread adoption.
It makes you think about all the potential ripple effects, too. Like, how will self-driving cars change our cities, our jobs, even our daily routines?
It's a whole new world waiting to be explored.
Seriously. It's an exciting time to be following the tech world.
No doubt about it.
And that's what I hope our listeners take away from this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Stay curious, ask questions, and don't be afraid to challenge assumptions. The tech world is constantly evolving, and it's up to all of us to shape its future.
Couldn't agree more.
Well said. So to all our amazing bite-sized tech listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun tech discussions.